Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'm just coming to the end of my watering session, and the last thing to be watered is Derek's plants. So I'm going to turn this into one of those one shelf rack at a time, because they're all on the same shelf and I've got to get them all out to water them. So now's an ideal opportunity to look at them. Now, those are relatively new to the channel or didn't listen last time. The story behind this is the chairman of the Bournemouth Orchid Society, Derek Copley, Dr. Derek Copley, sadly died, and he donated his collection of plants to Orchid Society members, leaving it to the committee to decide exactly how to do it. The problem was he fell ill and moved house. The combination of that meant that his plants were in a real sorry state when they finally got to go to other people. And what was a little annoying from my point of view is that the email went round to everybody in the society saying about that, and I replied saying, you know, I'm interested, count me in, within 5 minutes of that email going out. And I assumed we'd all be invited along in order of, you know, who said what. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, there was very little left that was worth bothering with. So jobs for the boys, I think, went on there, and committee and everything got first look. Anyway, despite that, I came away with some plants. Given what type of plants they were tiny. So they were either very small divisions or seedlings to grow on, and on top of that were in a bit of a sorry state. I repotted them all. They've been repotted again since then, not too long ago actually. I just did them en masse. I didn't repot them with extreme care and delicacy. I took them out of their pot, give them a good shake to get the old media off, and put them in new media. They all had the same. So we'll have a look at them. Some of these are very rare, and a lot of them have no ID. They had no tags, and until they bloom I don't have a clue. And I may not have a clue after they bloom. And I need to do some new tags because these tags are so faint. I can't read that. Well, it says on the back, Oncidium Emrys Jones. Not quite sure what it says on the front. It's probably repotting data, but it's faded badly. But Oncidium Emrys Jones, I've got that in my notes as its name. And those of you who don't like the boinging, will turn the sound down, or whatever. It'll only be a small amount as I, you know, go from one plant to the other. But I've spent an amount of time searching the internet for that name, or names similar to that in case it was spelt wrong. Not a trace. So where did that name come from, I asked myself. Is it a valid name? Was it a private collector's cross that never got registered? So in other words, it's a made up name. Now this is Oncidium laevi, which is a species of, well, it is, I was going to say obviously, but perhaps not. This has got a nice strong new growth and has some roots. That last one, again, nice strong new growth and roots. You know, so some of these plants are starting to grow reasonably well, albeit that they're small plants. Now it might be that they genuinely are small plants, if you see what I mean, and that the next growth on some of these, like this one, you know, back bulb with 2 leaves and an unleaved bulb, now it's got a nice strong new, if that forms a nice bulb, as is, that could be the size of the plant. It could be a small Oncidium, and the next growth, you know, might attempt to flower. Right, this one's not doing very well. This is, can I actually say that? It says Odontoglossum and then nothing else. It says on the back. Nope. So it just says Odontoglossum. It doesn't. Oh, hang on. Yes, it does. It's down in there. It's Cristatellum. I'll get there in a minute. My mouth won't work, it's nearly lunchtime. So it's Odont Cristatellum, according to the tag. Not doing very well for an awful long time, is now pushing up a new growth and starting some roots. So I think it's been saved. When you get back to some of these odonts, they're extremely difficult to find in cultivation, and in some cases, I'm not saying in this case, but in some cases are now extinct in the wild, mainly due to over-collection and habitat loss. I wonder whose fault that is. Us again. Can't leave anything alone. Right, so what's this one then? This is, it's got a tag. Oh, this is the, it's a Burnham's label, and I think what happened is Burnham's got this plant and couldn't read the tag and made one up as close as they could. But it's Geesbrechtianum, the one that I've got on a mount, so that's what it says. It doesn't say it exactly because it's spelt wrong, but it's close enough to assume. Not growing very well, but does have a new growth. So not quite sure what's going to happen with that one, but I do have my own version of that on the mount. So in theory, this is a duplicate. But given the spelling of that name, there isn't anything else remotely like it. So although it might be spelt wrong, it can't be anything else basically. Now this is what it isn't. This says Oncidium ornithorhynchum, which probably means it's Sotoanum. But until it blooms, there's no real way to tell. So it might actually be the genuine yellow plant. And I was impressed the other day. It was the Orchid Society of Great Britain. Somebody posted a very good version of Oncidium Sotoanum and said in the notes that went with it, this used to be incorrectly called that. And it's getting about. It's becoming known that that plant was named wrong for over 100 years. And they've now discovered that the plant with that name is actually a yellow Oncidium. You can understand them getting it wrong because it was first described using a black and white drawing, not a photo, for a start. Didn't have a lot to go on, did they? But anyway, once it was found out that it was a yellow Oncidium, the pink one that had been incorrectly named was given a new name, which is Sotoanum, which is in fact one of the parents of the twinkles. So what have we got here? What we've got here is the previous new growth. The centre has rotted, but it does have another new one. So it's difficult to tell what that's going to do, but the centre of the new growth has rotted, so that new growth will now not progress. Nonetheless, it's got good leaves on it apart from the centre growth. So it won't grow anymore, but it can still supply usefulness to the plant, and it does have another one that's just started. And this is a Wilsonara Tiger Brew Yellow, in quotes. What's funny is, more so in the old days when there was a registered, I mean that's an intergeneric, 3 types of orchids in there I believe, or I expect half of them have been renamed now. But in those days when they found a special one and they decided to present it to the RHS to see if it could become awarded, and when it got awarded, instead of thinking up a name like using your daughter's name as an example, or your wife's name, or your favourite car, or whatever you choose, they just chose the colour. Not very imaginative. Oh, what's this one then? This is abbreviated to ODA, which is, I'm not sure whether it's a primary cross or an intergeneric, because I'm not sure what goes into it. But I'm pretty sure it's Odontoglossum and Cochleoda. So a combination of those two, and it's Cooksonae, and it has a new growth, so it is growing. That one is if it's got cochleoda in it, most of those were quite small flowered. They've virtually all been renamed, they're nearly all oncidiums now. As is the odontoglossum part of it. So it's an oncidium probably now. But a lot of those cochleodas had quite good red in amongst them, and they were often used in hybridisation to try and introduce some red or deepen a yellow or turn a yellow into an orange. They used to try and use that colour to try and mix in with some other stuff to get some interesting results, and I'm sure they did. Right, now this has got no tag. It's quite a strong plant, it's not bad, and it has a nice strong new growth, and it has a pot full of roots. So typical, the one with no tag is doing very well, thank you very much. And maybe if it blooms we'll find out what the hell it is. Maybe not. Because with the oncidiums there's an awful lot that are incredibly similar, and as soon as you get into the intergenerics with 3 genera mixed in, identification becomes almost impossible because of the sheer number and variety of those types of orchids. Will you stay still? Right, and this one again has no tag. Now this hasn't got a strong new growth. What this has got is a new growth that's a bit odd. It's not the right shape, and it's, although I say it's only got 1 leaf, so have the other bulbs, so actually that's not abnormal for this plant, whatever it is. That might, if ever it grows well, it hasn't got hardly any roots, but it did grow a new growth. If ever that pushes on good enough to bloom, that could be something quite unusual. An oncidium type that has, as a matter of course, a single top leaf. No side leaves, no bract leaves at the base of the pseudobulb, just a single top leaf. Unusual, but no tag, so we may never find out what the hell it is. And the last one in here, in my notes it says I've got a Shari baby, but I don't know which one it is. But let me just cut that manky leaf off. I don't keep, once leaves go like that, I cut them off now. I don't leave them on the plant in case they pass on anything. But if any of those that we've looked at, out of those that we've looked at, that's the most likely to be Shari baby, if I've actually got one in amongst these. It's not doing particularly well, but it has pushed up a couple of new growths, and there are some roots in the pot. But again, we'd have to wait for it to bloom to find out what on earth it is. Now I started off with 20 of these. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. I thought I had 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. The other Derek's plant is the radiata, which is that great big thing up there, which has just opened its blooms. I'll get the camera down, you can have a look at that. It is the most fragrant. More fragrant than Shari baby? Yes. More fragrant than a zygo? Yes. It can produce fragrance. If you've ever been or seen pictures of Orchid Paradise at Burnham's nursery, a few specimen plants of that dotted around, and it's overpowering in that huge volume of airspace, so much so that Hannah had to leave. She started getting a busting headache and her eyes started to water. She couldn't cope with it. Whereas I thought it was wonderful. I couldn't work out what it was. I had to track it down to find out what it was. But that was the only good plant in amongst these, shall we say. And I spotted it as I walked in the greenhouse to have a look and get my selection. And literally, as soon as I saw that one, I didn't even know what it was. I just grabbed it and put it to one side. I said, I'll have that, because it was the only nice looking plant there. Right, we'll get the camera down and we'll have a look at Prosthetia radiata. Although I think it's not Prosthetia now, I think those have been renamed as well. I don't care. I'm going to call it Prosthegiata, but it's one of the upside down orchids. Yeah, it's one of those that the blooms look upside down. The lip is at the top. They're not big. They're not even brightly coloured because the petals and sepals are a greeny colour. The lip is nicely marked, but the fragrance is stunning. It's very powerful. It's difficult to say what it is. There's honey in there, I'm pretty sure, possibly vanilla. Vanilla honey? No such thing. Anyway, it's an incredibly strong fragrance. If you want a highly fragrant orchid that's not too difficult to grow, that's your baby. That's the plant. It's got 2 strong new growths coming out in there, and it's got 2 other spikes up the back there which will open. When all 3 of these spikes are open, the fragrance from this will sneak into the lounge even with the door shut. It's that powerful. Right, so that was a quick look at Derek's plants. I usually leave them there for 5 or 10 minutes just to drain through into the drip trays, and then I empty the drip trays before I put them back on their shelf. So that's the story behind Derek's plants. As I said, there were some incredibly rare crosses in there, some of which were done in the first half of the 1800s, and the chances are those crosses have never been done again. So those plants were possibly even unique, and I've lost some of them. They're gone. I can only do what I can do. I can only do so much. And they were in too bad a state, some of them, to even think about recovering, but I thought at least I'll try. Anyway, so that's what Derek's plants are all about. Most of the ones that are left are now at least growing, and hopefully, given possibly one more season, we should get some plants that are getting up to blooming size. So hopefully some of these will come into bloom next year, providing they survive that long, of course. But some of the true Oncidiums should be fine in here. The Odonts and the Cotyledons are both cool growers, so any of those that have got an element of that in them should do better here than they would have done round the other place because it's cooler. So anyway, that's those, and yeah, that clear. Another one of those one shelf at a time things, which came in handy because I had to pick them all up and water them anyway. So anyway, see you next time, and next time will be tomorrow for the Sunday chat. And just to let you know in advance so that you can start thinking, those that do that sort of thing. That sounded rude, didn't I? That came out wrong. I didn't mean it like that. I meant those that put some thoughts into the channel. That's what I meant. Basically, we're coming up to every 6 weeks or so I do a Q's and A's session, a question and answers session, and we're about due for one of those. So I'm thinking of putting one of those videos up where you leave your questions next week, sort of midweek, Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. And I have, normally we sacrifice a Sunday chat to do the answers, and I thought perhaps for a change, as it went down well last time, perhaps we'll do the answers on Saturday and do it live. I'm not guaranteeing, but you know, if I put a video up on Wednesday saying that I'm going live on Saturday, as far as I'm concerned, you've had enough notice. I don't sort of do 2 or 3 weeks notice for a live broadcast. You can always watch it after. It's not like you have to be there for a live broadcast. It's nice if you are, but you don't have to. You don't miss it if you're not there for the actual event. You can still watch it as a normal video afterwards. So that's the idea. It may not happen, but I'd class it as a high probable at the moment. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.